everyone, my name is Gracia Santillana. I'm a careers reporter here at Forbes, and today I'm joined by Ryan SERHANT. Ryan is the founder, CEO, and head broker at SERHANT, a real estate firm. He sold over $10 million worth of real estate in his career, and today we're here with him to talk about his 10,000-minute strategy. Ryan, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So I want to get into a little bit of this idea that I know you've talked about, time management and this 1,000 minutes kind of chunk throughout the day.
Yep.
Let's start for, everyone who doesn't know what this is. What is the 1,000-minute method?
So I think it makes sense maybe to take you back for 30 seconds and just give you some quick context. I'm in sales. I'm an entrepreneur, which really means that I don't have a salary. I don't get paid hourly. There's no benefits. There's no nothing. You wake up every day, you eat what you kill, or you don't. And so when I was young, 22, living in New York City with no job, but I had rent to pay, I had bills to pay, I had to, electricity and food and all that. I had to figure out how do I manage my day? How do I figure things out? Whether I'm trying to sell real estate or insurance, or I was trying to act at the time, and I saw everybody else had scheduled calendars based on their appointments, and a lot of what was set by like middle management or their bosses. Like, okay, so everybody has the same amount of time in a day. I just need to be the one who's the most productive with the time that I have. And I also need to make sure that I don't throw days or weeks or months away if I have a bad hour or a bad call, right? Because I would do that a lot. You'd have like a bad call with somebody, you get bad news, and like, oh, dude, that ruined my day. Oh, she totally ruined my week, which is unfair to the rest of the week and the rest of the day. So I looked at it and said, all right, I've got 1,440 minutes a day. 440 of those minutes roughly I'll sleep, I'll hang out, I'll eat, I'll do what I need to do, and then as a single guy living in New York at the time, I've got about 1,000 minutes a day to be productive. Now some people have 200 minutes a day, some people have more than 1,000 minutes. It really depends. But mine was about 1,000, and I looked at it as a gift every day. I'm the CEO of my own bank of time. And every day I wake up with a fresh $1,000 in my account that I get to be productive with. And it protects me against time vampires. It protects me against wasting time for all those like, hey, let's set up a meeting. No problem. Now it's a 2-hour lunch. Like, that's not a great investment of those dollars, right? That could have been an email. That could have been a phone call. That could have been a text message. And so it really helped me start to think about how I use my time wisely as an entrepreneur who does not have a salary or an hourly wage. That's really where it all started.
Yeah, walk me through. I think it's interesting, right? Like earlier on in your career where maybe you're not, the owner of all of your time. How did you implement that, within, maybe it wasn't 1,000, but maybe it was 500, 200 days where, okay, you're answering to someone else, but you still have a little agency over whatever little time you have?
Well, we all have choice. I think even if you have a client or a customer or somebody who's taking up your time and saying, well, if you want to work with me, you got to meet me at 10 a.m., you still have the choice to show up or not show up. You can still move home. You can still move to the Amazon rainforest. Like some choice is reasonable. Some choice is not reasonable. You just have to make that decision. And so my goal was to have as much agency, to use your words, over my time as possible, and to make every choice a decision instead of a requirement, right? Even if it was a requirement, it was far more empowering for me to know it was my choice to make this a requirement. And then I would break my day down across those 1,000 minutes as an entrepreneur, as my 3 buckets or 3 hats that I wear, which are I find business, I then keep business, and then I do business. And so as a, early 20s guy in New York City, every day I knew I had to wake up, I had to find work, I had to find business, then I had to keep the business that I'd already found, usually the day before, the week before, the month before, and then I had to go do all the work. So like my calendar would literally be 1,000 minutes, and then let's say from 8 to, could be 10 a.m., right? So that's 120 minutes right there. That's finder time. And then from 10:30 to 1:30 could be keeper time. And then 2 to 7 could be the doer time. And then every day is a little bit different as long as I know that every day I have to find, keep, and do. Finder, keeper, doer. And that structure worked really well for me and helped me move much, much faster.
Yeah. Has it ever become too restrictive to the point where you're like, oh my gosh, this went over 16 minutes and now, I can't do this for whatever reason?
No, no. I don't allow myself to be like a prisoner to my own calendar.
Mm-hmm.
It actually helps me be far more free. You know, I, for all the structure I'm talking about right now, I'll tell you, I feel far more restricted if I'm in a 2 hour meeting that didn't need to be 2 hours, right?
Yeah.
If I'm on a 1 hour call or a Zoom, or I'm in a long, engaging something that just didn't need to be this amount of time, it's like
Yeah.
there's a lack of respect there, and
Mm-hmm.
someone just took those minutes from me and they didn't pay me for them. So have you ever been in a meeting and you're like, oh my
Yeah.
God, I can't wait till I get out of this? Why? So why are you even there in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
Why put ourselves in those types of moments? I feel like those situations when I don't think about my time and then
Yeah.
I get stuck are far more restrictive. And I feel like it's a far bigger waste of my time than operating under a calendar this way. And because I've been so public with my 1,000-minute rule,
Yeah.
because Harvard's written about it and I wrote books and stuff, people know about it who work with me, and they are very, very cognizant of my time. And if they
Yeah.
don't like it, they don't have to work with me. Like, it's okay. There's 8 billion
Yeah.
people on the planet.
Yeah. So what's your biggest tip for someone who's like maybe looking to get a new time management advice in their life, in their career, and they're like, hey, is the 1,000-minute method work for me? What's your advice there?
The first thing I would do is do a time audit. The
Mm-hmm.
same way you would do, a like a diary. Okay,
Yeah.
like if you're trying to lose weight, instead of just going cold turkey on sugar for the next month, which is impossible, you're never going to do
Mm-hmm.
it. You really just go about your day for the next week, right? Go about your life and write down everything you do eat, because a lot of
Mm-hmm.
what you're eating is going to be a surprise to you. Like, you don't realize that you actually had 72 pretzels. Like, you,
Yeah.
you write it all down. You take an honest diary, right? You journal it all out, and then you look back at that and you say, okay, where can I actually compromise with myself? Because that's who the
Mm-hmm.
agreement's with. It's not with a trainer or a nutritionist, it's with yourself. It's the same thing with time. Okay? Actually go through and calendar every little thing you do, including access to social media. Use screen time, right, on your phone. That'll tell you how much time you spent on your phone, and try to decipher and just write it down. Just spend a
Yeah.
week, right? 7 days, including the weekends, and really look at what you spent time doing, and then look back at it, color code it, and say, holy macaroni. Um, I thought I was working really, really hard. I wasn't. I was just really busy, and the busyness isn't productive. And so the doom scrolling and the this and the that I do actually is aiding towards making me feel bad about my
Yeah.
life or my career or myself, when really it's just how I spend my time. I mean, how you spend your time is equivalent to how you eat, right? Except it affects yourself mentally as food would affect you physically. And so I would tell
Mm-hmm.
everybody, do a time audit for 7 days, look at it and see where you can start to make compromises, before you go crazy and just start
Yeah.
budgeting your time based on 1,000 minutes and finder keeper doer time. You won't do it. You won't stick to it. You got to take it a little bit at a time.
Yeah. What are your, advice for someone who's maybe struggling on establishing those boundaries of like, hey, this 2 hour long phone call or lunch really could have been, a back and forth email that would have taken 20 minutes of our time max.
Honesty is the best policy.
Mm-hmm.
I just happened this morning. There's a breakfast meeting set up on my calendar for today, this morning, and so I emailed my assistant. I emailed the guy that I was supposed to have breakfast
Yeah.
with. Said, hey, I see it's in the calendar. Hey, let's just meet in my office. Easy. Like, no, it's okay to ask. It's okay to
Yeah.
say. I mean, unless you really do want to have the breakfast meeting, then great. It can go vice
Mm-hmm.
versa. It could be a 15-minute meeting, and you're like, man, I really want to spend an hour with him.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm going to come to you. I'll come to you. Do you have time? Well, good. I mean, it goes both ways, but I think honesty is the best policy. Tell people you got to be places. You're running around.
Yeah.
I'm making time for you. This is important, and be authentic. I think it doesn't work when you're inauthentic. Like, if you don't want to be in the room, don't be in the room. But then you don't
Yeah.
get the right to complain about not being there.
Yeah. I think that's a really important part, right? It's like you have to commit to yourself about what you want to be part of and not. How
Yeah.
has this, what's like filled your 1,000 minutes changed as your career has progressed, right? How much time, for example, do you actually spend physically sitting down schedules versus now, having people that work for you, assistants, managers, that can maybe fill in those gaps?
I was flying on an airplane once with maybe the biggest CEO of a bank on planet Earth.
Yeah.
And I asked him how he manages his time. So I was just
Yeah.
curious, man,
Uh-huh.
I think I'm stressed. I think I'm busy. How do you, like, you manage the whole, showed me his calendar. He had like one meeting that day.
Well,
It's like, what do you do? He's like, actually, I do so much to get myself to the point where I have white space so that every day I go where I am the absolute most needed instead of going where I pre-prescribe myself. It's like, wow, that's ideally where I want to get to. So when I started operating my calendar this way and my time, a significant amount of my business was doing business, right? I'd have a little time to go find and prospect, but then I had to keep the business I promised I'd take care of. And then I would spend
yeah.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours a day doing the actual work, running around. As you grow and as you become more successful, that starts to shift. You start to spend the majority of your time finding business because that's where your highest and best use is.
Yeah.
You're supposed to spend all of your time doing what only you can do. And then as you make money, you invest in other people, systems, and processes to do the things that can be done by other people, systems, and processes.
Yeah.
And so now I spend a significant amount of my days finding. I'm a finder all day long, kind of wearing that CEO hat, right? I'm there to
Yeah.
find I keep, right? It's about retention as well, retaining. And then my doing is branding and expanding now more than anything. And then putting out fires, right? You don't
Yeah.
go to the CEO with good news. You go to the CEO with, man, the whole company can't figure this out. What do you want to do?
Yeah.
And that's a lot of my day.
Yeah. It's interesting. I like how you said that, right? It's shifted a little bit more into like the doing and the keeping rather than maybe the finding. Or sorry, the finding, right, is the big part.
Yeah, you switch, right? You go from learning to using.
Yeah.
You go from doing to finding. And that's the goal you want to get to. And it just helps. It helps also structure goals.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're 25 one day, and the next thing you know, you're 35,
Yeah.
right? Or you're 35, and then you're 49. You're like, man, time flies. What have I even done? Do I have the same job I've always had?
Yeah.
Did I never actually go back to school the way I wanted to? Did I never actually follow up with that passion? Did I never actually? And I never want to be someone who says, if only, or
Yeah.
I should have. And so it helps me really stay focused, which also, kind of to my point earlier, allows me to emotionally and mentally move past things that are not a focus. Right?
Yeah.
It's like in my business, real estate business, right? You lose more deals than you make,
Yeah.
right? You lose more clients than you make. I lose more agents than we hire. It's you have
Yeah.
there's a lot of negativity during the day, but I don't focus on it because yes, I use it. I learn from it. I'm not a crazy person, but it's not my focus because it's not what I've allocated my time to, and it's not what I've allocated my goals to. My goal for the year isn't lose less, right? My goal for the year is to win more.
Yeah.
And so when we lose, learn from it, but I'm not going to let it ruin me. I'm going to let it influence how I move forward and then onward and forward. It
Yeah,
helps you
it's
keep your eye on the ball.
Yeah, it seems like, rip off the Band-Aid, move on to the next problem, on to the next positive.
Yes.
Cool. I want to end our conversation today with kind of a look back at your career, right? You talked about, growing, doing a little bit of musical theater, and then going into the real estate business. What is one advice that you wish that you would have listened to sooner?
At the beginning of my career?
Yeah, earlier on, right? Like, I love hearing about your advice, but I want to, get into a little bit of Ryan's head and say, hey, like, if I would have listened to X, Y, or Z, maybe my life would have been easier earlier on.
Oh man, no man is an island, meaning that you're not supposed to do it all alone. I spent the beginning part of my entire career just winging it, doing it by myself, learning from other people, but I didn't have a coach, I didn't have a plan, I didn't have a process, I wasn't on someone's team, I was just alone. And I think I felt that was the right way to do it, that there was nobility in not knowing, which is just immature. And I preach as much as I can now to younger people and to anyone who's even shifting in careers. Like, it's okay to ask, learn, join teams, switch company. Make sure that you are doing what's best for you,
Yeah.
and you're actually educating yourself and investing in yourself. I think my life could have been much, much easier, especially at the beginning, had I done that.
Yeah, I will take that to heart as well. I think that's a really good idea. But that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us, Ryan. And we'll be in touch.
Thank you.